Hello, hello, everyone. Welcome to a fresh edition of ESPN FC Live. I'm Alexis Nunes with the Geordie legend that is Don Hutchison. What a reunion, Don. And I'm so happy to talk to you just because you're a breath of fresh air from the
I've not seen you for ages. Where have we been?
They're keeping us apart. But let's talk about Champions League, shall we? Because second legs this week have delivered so far in terms of giving some people scares, giving some people hope. But in the end, we'll start off with Aston Villa going up against PSG. We knew that the Villains had quite a bit to do to unseat PSG, but they huffed, they puffed, they threatened so well to blow that French house down. But in the end, PSG were resilient. But Don, before we get into little bits and bobs about the game, just tell me your overall thoughts, because I thought that was one of the most entertaining games I think I've seen in a while.
It was off the back of them beating Liverpool a few weeks ago, which I tell you, when you look back, you can look back at that game and think, well, Liverpool come out of that game with credit because PSG are just nearly the perfect side. And they proved last night the way they played against Villa. They were sensational in midfield. They keep hold of the ball. They score goals. They've got wide men that are brilliant, that can take anyone on. They've got Dembele, who's an amazing form, but it's the way they play. But Villa give a real good account of themselves. I actually got the feeling watching the game, Villa played like an English side. As in, like, they got in amongst them after they went 2-0 down, of course. Then they realised, right, we can't outplay this PSG side. It's going to be impossible. So why don't we try and do it our style? We'll try and trample all over them. We'll go a little bit longer. We'll get the ball to Rashford, who was brilliant. And they were so close. I mean, they come out of that game with so much credit. Any Villa fan watching that game last night would have known it would have been nigh impossible to beat PSG over the two legs. But my word, Villa and Unai Emery and the players come out with some credit.
Absolute credit. What an entertaining game it is. We're going to definitely look at both sides separately. Now we'll get to Villa second. Let's talk about the winners and the ones who move on to the semifinals now. And that is PSG. There's always the good, the bad, the ugly. Let's talk about probably the bad first, because we'll end on a high, as I usually like to do. Do you think, looking at this game, Aston Villa probably exposed some limitations in this PSG team that's gotten all of us excited in the Champions League this season?
I think it's a fair point you make, and I think it's a brilliant question. My takeaway from the game, I thought PSG found it a little bit easy, and I thought they treated Villa, once they went 2-0 up, of course, not from the start, but they stopped doing the things that they were doing well. So once PSG scored a couple of goals, all of a sudden, they were playing 5-yard passes, taking risks instead of going forward and getting it to Dembele or Doué or Kvaratskhelia. They start to go backwards, start to go into the goalkeeper. They stopped doing, and I think that's what Luis Enrique will have enforced his message on the training ground the day after today, or maybe he's in the analysis for the next game. When you get a team 2-0 up, you have to keep doing the right things. And if they had done that, they probably would have went on to score 4 or 5. The fact that they took their foot on the gas and come down a gear or two, and they started taking chances, all of a sudden Villa went, well, hang on a minute, why don't we try and press them? Because they're not going for our throat at 2-0 up. They've decided that the game's won over the two legs, 5-1 up, I think it was, on aggregate at one time. So they started taking chances, and Villa thought, you know what, let's just have a go. Let's close them down. Then they got their goals, and all of a sudden, momentum's a huge thing in football. They started getting belief. But it's a fascinating question on the whereabouts of where PSG are. I still think they're the best side of the tournament, or one of. And I think my analysis of the way they played last night, it 2-0 up, I thought they had a lot more gears to go through, but they decided keep ball was the way to go, but they got lucky.
I suppose Arsenal and or Real Madrid may be looking extra close at that Aston Villa game. We'll see what happens later on tonight. But another question I have too, because ESPN FC on social media, our account, just posted a very interesting stat, and that's the fact that PSG have advanced to the Champions League semifinals in 4 of the last 6 seasons. The only 2 seasons that they didn't get to the semifinals, as a matter of fact, they were knocked out in the round of 16 on both occasions, is when they had Mbappe, Neymar, and Messi as their front 3. Now, that stat blows my mind, because the whole point of PSG was to build this super team, almost like a Manchester City, star-studded, and to get Mbappe to win the Champions League in his hometown shirt. That, of course, never happened. All 3 have since gone right now, and we feel like we're seeing PSG really playing as a team now. So as you just said, you think that they're still the most talented team in this tournament right now, or the best looking one so far in this tournament. So they're the real deal. Are they still your favorites to win this?
They are, Alexis. They are my favorites because they can do anything. And when you look at that team, And I always gauge it by whoever they're playing against, whoever it might be, whether Aston Villa or Liverpool or Barcelona, whoever it might be. I always try and gauge it how many of the opposition players would get in the PSG team. And their answer is there's not many. They got, I mean, you can pick holes in Donnarumma if you want, but I still think he's a fantastic goalkeeper. I believe Nuno Mendes and Achraf Hakimi are the best two fullbacks in world football. You've got the experience of Marquinhos. Then you go into midfield. There's not many better midfielders than Fabian Ruiz, Vitinha, and João Neves. I mean, they're amazing. And look at the front three. I mean, it's nearly the perfect side. So whichever they play semis and final, when you amalgamate, I would guess like a combined side, PSG are going to come out on top. Probably, I would imagine 7 or 8 players, if not more. So these are very strong. The experiment, as you said, with the Galacticos was never going to work, in my opinion, because fantastic players they were, but Father Time catches up to everyone. And the fact that they didn't really want to track back and they didn't want to work as individuals, as a team. I never really thought since day one that was ever going to work. It was exciting to watch, but it was never going to work. But you look at PSG now and you go, these are the complete team.
And that's interesting to see too, because usually when you lose someone like Mbappe, like Messi, okay, Neymar, okay, but the one who this team was built around was Kylian Mbappe. We know exactly what he means to the club. We know what the club and the city means to him. And the fact that he just left, he's not even really completed a full season yet at Real Madrid. You almost expect that there would be some growing pains in getting used to life post Mbappe. But we're not seeing that. So what's impressed you the most about how they've managed to improve from losing such a key person?
Well, Kvaratskhelia can play on either side. He's predominantly more when he played for Napoli off the left-hand side, but he's got Doué and Barcola on that side, who are two fantastic, brilliant players who are willing to work hard for the badge. And they're the sort of team players that you need, but ultra skillful at the same time. So I just get the impression Dembele's form has been off the charts, by the way, who's not really a number 9, plays as a false 9. So he's a guy that can play wide as well. So when you look at PSG, I look at a group of players that are very versatile. So injuries are always a manager's fear, but I get the impression when you watch PSG, if 1 or 2 of those players that I mentioned got injured, they can all just rotate and swap positions. And then the fact you add in Vitinha and João Neves in the middle of the park and Fabian Ruiz, they can slow the tempo down like they did last night. They've done it at Anfield, I think, in 90 minutes, more so in extra time. So they've got this wonderful, arrogant ability to back themselves on the ball. But yet, if you want to try and press them, it's difficult because they're technically very good. But if you press them by and you really press them high up the pitch and they pick you off, and as we saw last night with the first 2 goals, when you get it wrong, they're devastating. And that's what PSG are. They're a devastating side to watch. And they're almost like a throwback team because apart from that little wobble like they had last night when I mentioned they tried to play a little bit too slow, they are an amazing side to watch. They're a counter-attacking side when they need to be, but also technically very calm and it can slow the tempo down and outpass you. So there's some side to try and beat.
Yeah, I think it was Ezri Konsa after the game that said what got Villa or what devastated them, as you pointed out, were those 2 early goals. And when your fullbacks are scoring early goals so quick out of the blocks, I mean, you just wonder, do we even need that forward line?
How do you stop them?
How do you stop them? And then if it goes to penalties, they can hold their nerve as well to do it. PSG looking like an unstoppable force, but they were nearly stopped by Aston Villa. And we do have to say, because what an incredible season Aston Villa are having, especially in the Champions League. I mean, Unai Emery had us all believing that there could have been an upset on the cards as well. Looking at Villa, who stood out for you in just
Rashford.
What could have been an unforgettable night in history?
John McGinn played well, but I thought Marcus Rashford was excellent. Yeah, I thought he was excellent. I look back at that game, and Villa was so close. And Unai Emery was talking afterwards. He said the margins were very fine, and they were, because when you analyse how Villa played once they went 2-0 down and they went English, and I say that sort of loosely by just going that little bit longer and adding more pace to the game. I thought Rashford was back to his very best last night. But you look at the chances that they had. Asensio came off the bench. He had a real chance 1-on-1 with Donnarumma. But the best chance after Konsa had scored was the header that he actually missed. He was wide open, and I think it was a Rashford cross, a free kick it was. And he put a great ball in from the right-hand side. And Ezri Konsa will replay that over and over again. Because that's what we do as professionals. We always analyse the bits that you get wrong. We never highlight the bits that we do well. We never sort of pat ourselves on the back. We always go, what if? Could I have done better? That chance was a golden opportunity. And if Villa had scored that one, my word, it would have been a fight. I mean, it was 5-5 at the time if they had got that one back. So that would have been a real test for PSG. But loads of credit for Unai Emery's men.
And I mean, you've been in dressing rooms in similar situations, not necessarily, it doesn't have to be the Champions League exactly like this, but in situations where you almost came close. And now you're wondering, all right, we're in a decent position in the league. We look to all but have secured European football for next season. The Champions League, they were throwing all their eggs in that basket and believing. How do Villa build on this now?
Well, two ways. They need funding from above, so they need to buy better players. That's always difficult when you've got good players. Liverpool's a case in point. When you analyse what Liverpool have got, how do you try and strengthen that? So Unai Emery will have in mind, especially when you watch PSG and you watch how good they are technically in midfield, controlling, dictating a game. Well, Youri Tielemans is that man. So can you try and buy better midfield players to play alongside him? They've got players like Ramsey and Morgan Rogers who are brilliant young players. So they're going to get better. Can you have a number 9 that's going to guarantee you 25 goals a season? Can you get a little bit more out your wide man? It's all margins, Alexis. It's all like Moneyball stuff. If you've got a centre forward that's scoring 15 goals, the next step is you want to buy one that can get 20, or you make him better, and vice versa. If you've got midfield players like Youri Tielemans, who's technically very good, well, he should be getting 10 goals a season. If you're Morgan Rogers, he should be getting 10 to 12 goals a season. Ramsey the same. So it's either Unai Emery making these young players and some of the experienced players better, which is feasible because he's a brilliant manager, or you say to the board and the sporting director, right, come on, like with quarterfinal Champions League, it's time to kick on. We're going to try and finish in the top 4. We want to try and get close to the title. All needs a little bit of money. It's never going to go away. The age-old problem and how you fix football teams is if you've got the best teams and the best players, you've got a great chance of winning. So that's what he needs.
Final one on Villa, because as you're speaking about funding and investing in players, you mentioned some big names, but I have to bring it back to my boy, Marcus Rashford. We know that there's a lot more loose ends in that, considering he still is very much a Manchester United player. But from what we have seen from him and just watching him again last night, Don, seeing him bobbing and weaving through defenders, and these are PSG defenders we're talking about, which we know normally on a regular Marcus Rashford day, this is his level, you know? But seeing what we've seen from Marcus Rashford now, is he someone that Villa and Unai Emery have to do something to hold on to?
Break the bank. I think you're looking at a player. Isn't it brilliant as well from the human side when people like me and people like yourself, when you ask the questions, and I've got to be honest, being an analyst, and we criticize players because it's our job. We critique them, good and bad. But I think when you critique certain players, especially in my opinion, it comes from a point where when I critique Marcus Rashford, it's because I want him to do well. And I critique him because the talent is in there. We've known it. We've seen it for a long, long time. So whenever you pick holes in someone's performances or their demeanor or their attitude or their character or their ability to run around and work hard, it's because we know he can do it. So he proved last night he can. You're right, Alexis. This is his level. Always has been. Yeah. You might be looking at a case, and it's difficult to try and look from my point of view from the outside world, but you might be looking at a young man that's got away from Manchester. He's got out of that bubble. He's got out of one or two of his mates that sometimes you have to leave behind. And he's gone into Aston Villa, which is a massive football club. And Unai Emery's probably told him on day one when you walk through the door, and people like John McGinn would have said the same thing. You're going to have to work hard to get in this side. So when you're a player like Rashford, you go into a new environment with a brand new manager, top class manager, by the way, you go into that culture in that dressing room, they drag you up to the level. But as they've dragged him up to the level, he's now shown the world, and he's showing Unai Emery, you need to break the bank for me, because if Villa are going to try and compete for top 4 and compete for Champions Leagues, that's the type of player they should be buying. So go for him.
It burns me a little to hear you say that, because, you know, I love me some Marcus Rashford all day, every day, but you know which side of Manchester my heart lies, and it will pain me to see one of our
Alexis, unless he's got his mojo back and he's got his confidence back and he's got a love for the game back, there's a chance he might go back to Manchester United and reproduce it. I hope he does.
Not to be playing mid-table football, Don. Anyways, moving on. There is so much pain there. Let's talk about Dortmund and Barcelona now, too, because what a last couple of days Dortmund have been having. Could the real Borussia Dortmund please stand up? And is it the Borussia Dortmund that we just saw in the Clasica and now daring to take the game to Barcelona, probably who, apart from PSG, has been everybody's other favorite to win the Champions League this season? Now, a colleague of ours, Mauricio Pedrosa, over on ESPN Deportes, he said that Dortmund has done what many other teams, or not any other team, has done in 2025, and that has made Barcelona look bad. Do you agree? And should there be cause for concern from what we saw from Barcelona yesterday?
Yeah, because you can't expose Barcelona, because what they are, they're a side that play ultra high. So you can't expose that. And Dortmund done that last night, where you play balls into midfield and then straight away, if that Barcelona back line is high, you expose them by going that little bit longer over the top. I still feel as though when you're going into a game and you're leading 4-0, there's going to be an element in the back of your mind, if you're Barca, the game's done. We've still got to manage it. We've still got to play well, but we might not need to be at full tilt. Well, again, they proved, like Aston Villa, Dortmund last night, that they can compete. But I think from a Dortmund point of view, their fans must be like thinking, we are so much a Jekyll and Hyde side. Why can't we do this in the league? Why are we down in 8th or 9th? And why we're not producing these performances? Because I can tell you, I've commentated on Borussia Dortmund for probably the last 10 years. And every time they play a top side, apart from Bayern, of course, they tend to put in good performances and get good wins. As soon as they play Mainz or Freiburg or anyone down at the bottom, they lose. You just can't rely on Borussia Dortmund. That's the problem. But last night, I think they proved to their fans who come away from that game thinking that's the Dortmund side. That's why the yellow wall was full last night. That's why the atmosphere was rocking, because we took a good side nearly all the way. They've got to replicate that in the Bundesliga.
Yeah, they absolutely do have to. Is it just typical Dortmund to see them kind of falling at this stage?
I'm afraid so, because the levels are so high, and it's not a knock on Dortmund. It's like you get to this stage and you're playing Barcelona. You know, if Arsenal are playing Real Madrid, the standards and the quality of opposition, and Villa are playing PSG, and the opposition that you're facing, which is, you know, captain obvious, really. Once you get to quarterfinal, semis, and final, you're playing against brilliant sides. So it's no knock on Dortmund that they couldn't quite squeeze through, but you know, they can be optimistic of the future of the way they played last night.
Yeah, well, you did mention Real Madrid there, and I want to move on to that one. Barcelona's, I suppose, most hated enemy. But they are involved in quite the battle themselves with Arsenal, and they have fallen behind. So let's preview the semifinals that we're going to see, the quarterfinals that we're seeing tonight as well. And all eyes, respectfully, too, on the other one that we will get to, but all eyes are on Real Madrid against Arsenal. Whether or not they can do the big comeback that has become so typical of Real Madrid, well, let's hear from Jude Bellingham.
So it's a weird environment at the minute. The last few days, it's like one of the worst results we could possibly imagine away, and for some reason, everyone thinks it's nailed on that we'll come back, and it's a nice feeling, I have to say. It means there's a lot of trust in the talent. It means that you're at a club that's unlike no other, the best in the world. That's what it represents and signifies to me. So yeah, there's a pressure that comes along with that for sure, and we'll want to deliver on what everyone thinks, that we can come back, and that's obviously the goal for us. But yeah, there is a pressure about it, and that's what it's all about, isn't it? It's a night that's made for Real Madrid, a night that would go down in history, but also be something that people are familiar with around this part of the world. So yeah, hopefully we can add another special night.
It's a night made for Real Madrid. It is at the Santiago Bernabeu, and La Remontada, that is the word that has been thrown around so many times. Poor Arsenal could not even properly celebrate their massive win last week, Don, because everyone was saying, but this is Real Madrid. You know, it is written in the stars. The second leg is at their house. Jude Bellingham's talked about it. Everyone's talked about it. And it's true, Don, because we cover La Liga very closely as well. And we know that this is peak Real Madrid. This is the stage that they thrive on. However, my personal opinion is I feel like maybe lightning won't strike in the same place this time. I could be wrong. I could be wrong. dares to judge or to doubt Real Madrid. But what do you think? They really could turn this all around, couldn't they?
It just pulls on every string that you've got in your body. It pulls on the heartstrings. It pulls on the mind, because the mind tells you they can't come back against Arsenal, who are 3-0 up, who are a fantastic side, so it cannot happen. But then the year that they won the Champions League, Man City had them beat. Chelsea had them beat. PSG had them beat. Liverpool bossed them in the final. They should have had them beat. Nope, Real Madrid win it. Their name's on this trophy. It's madness. I do personally think it's too much. But I know exactly what Jude Bellingham's saying. He's saying they're optimistic and the mood's good, because when you flip it and when you have the conversation, it's a conversation me and you can have. But any given time we can go, yeah, Arsenal should go through. But then we'll say, what if Real Madrid score inside the first 10 minutes? And that's what the Arsenal fans and the players will be thinking as well. How do we manage this game? Do we play our own game? Do we take a step back? If we do, and Vinny Jr. turns it on, and Kylian turns it on, and Jude turns it on, or Rodrigo turns it on, or Valverde, all these legendary players that they've got, because they can, and it's in the Bernabeu, as you said, and the atmosphere is going to be white hot. It's going to be electric. So it's just a case of get the popcorn, watch the first 20 minutes. I think that'll tell us exactly how the game's going to flow in terms of the dynamic and the end result. If Real score in the first 20, it's going to be unbelievable. If Arsenal can manage 20, half an hour, they should have enough.
Oh, you know what they always say, it is easier to chase than it is to lead. And I think everybody has learned that, especially when it comes to Real Madrid, who are on.
Do you remember, Alexis? Do you remember when they played Man City? And I think I'll never forget it. Well, a graphic popped up on my TV, and they had no shots on target, Real Madrid, for 90 minutes. And it was 90 plus 5. And the graphic popped up on my TV. They've got a 1% chance of going through, Real Madrid. Scored 2 goals in injury time and went through. It was nuts. That's what they can do.
I was at the Santiago Bernabeu watching that game because we had just finished doing La Liga coverage at the weekend. And I said, you know what? Let me stay. Let me just stay a couple of days. We had gotten some free tickets. Oh, why not? Wow. One of the most stunning games I think I have ever seen in my life. And that is typical for Real Madrid. They know how to do this. So if you're Arsenal now, as I said, they almost didn't. And I'm not saying Arsenal fans didn't get to celebrate, because yes, Gunners, we have heard you. Yeah. Don't worry, we have heard you. But immediately since the full-time whistle, because it was Real Madrid, all of the headlines surrounded them. We've seen the Jude Bellingham interviews. We've seen the admin for Real Madrid's social media accounts putting up little teasers saying 90 minutes is a long time at the Santiago Bernabeu. And we know it. So if you're Arsenal and you're going through all of this, you're almost like, do I really have a lead in this one? How do Arsenal manage this game mentally and, of course, physically on the pitch?
It's very difficult. And that's why top coaches like Arteta and the coaching staff have to drum in to the players their tactics of the game. So the tactics of the game can be, let's take a step back. We'll go there with a 3-0 lead. Let's manage minutes. We don't lose one side first 15, first 20. We come through unscathed. We grow into the game. We've got the scoreline in our favour. Arsenal fans will be loud as possible. They go into that game with loads of confidence. But again, like I said before, it's the what-if moment. It's what if Real Madrid score in the first 20. It's what if Real Madrid find themselves 2-1 up at half-time. I think if you're Arsenal, what you've got to try and do, you've got to try and go there and be positive and score and really believe that you can score against Real Madrid, because they can. Because Real Madrid's all their problems are coming at the back. Got so many injuries. They look a little bit fragile defensively, but offensively, they're obviously very strong. They didn't show it in the first leg, and Arsenal deserved their 3-0 win. A couple of brilliant kicks from Declan Rice, by the way. So they must go into that game quietly confident. But at the same time, that's what I'm saying about pulling on the mind. It's like, yeah, but it's Real Madrid. Yeah. It's Real Madrid. So they've got to try and be mentally strong. I think that's the most important thing. Play well, but be mentally unbelievably strong, ready for a game, ready for a fight.
Now, what does Carlo Ancelotti need to do different? I mean, far be it from us to tell El Mister what to do. We already know how much we respect Carlo Ancelotti, and this is definitely his stage as well. However, there were some questions about him using players out of their natural positions last week, especially a certain Fede Valverde, who just adds so much vibes in that midfield, especially when Real Madrid need it. And boy, did they need it at the Emirates. So what would you like to see him do differently tonight?
He'll change the system because he played 4-4-2 at the Emirates. And as soon as I seen the side, I thought Real Madrid are never a 4-4-2 side. And he played Jude Bellingham out of position on the left-hand side, I guess, to try and stop Bukayo Saka. So I can understand what Ancelotti was thinking. I just think with that group of players, you can't be negative. You can't be worrying. Like if you've got Kylian Mbappe and you've got Vinny Jr. and Rodrigo and Valverde and Jude Bellingham, the last thing you want to sort of tell your players is, by the way, Arsenal are a good side. So why don't we change our whole system and our whole structure to stop Arsenal from scoring? I think if you'll ask Carlo, probably after the game, if they go out or whatever the scenario might be, if they lose and go out the competition, I think if you asked him, he probably wouldn't say it on air, but if you asked him privately, well, you're a bit negative in the first leg, I think he'll probably give you a little eyebrow and go, yeah. So they'll go back to 4-3-3 tonight. They'll be super aggressive. They'll want territory. They'll want to be hyped the pitch. They'll want to put Kivior under pressure. They'll want to try and pin their fullbacks back. They'll want to try and dominate the ball in midfield. But the thing I never saw with Real Madrid in the Emirates was tempo. I thought they were very loose. I thought Mbappe was loose when he had the ball. I thought Vinny Jr. was the same. I thought Rodrigo didn't really have his best game and was probably doing more defensive work. I think Carlo just has to say to his players tonight, all he is, just go. Just go and fly forward. Go and enjoy yourselves, but go and take the game and score early.
Well, with that said, just linking it back to what you had said earlier about PSG still being your favorites to win this one. There's two scenarios, of course, Arsenal up against PSG. Let me know how you think that matchup will go. Or would you rather see the Real Madrid and the return of Kylian Mbappe facing his former club in the semifinals of the Champions League, something that he could not win?
I'll tell you a great question, Alexis. I'll tell you a great question. From an Arsenal point of view, if they go through, who would they prefer?
I mean...
Would they prefer?
How do you choose?
I mean, at some point they're going to have to play PSG or Barca. At some point.
I honestly, it's like, who do you choose? The lesser of the two evils. But
worry about that. Worry about that another day.
We'll worry about that after, because tonight I feel. Let me ask you then quickly before we move on to the Inter Bayern game. Do I get the feeling that after everything we've just said about Real Madrid, and we know they could pull this off, but you're still thinking that this may be a mountain too high for them to climb with the way Arsenal have been going, and Arsenal looked exceptional last week?
Yeah, but professional head says Arsenal. The heartstrings say, could it be Real? But I think Arsenal have built up a lead where they go there with 3. You know, even like if it was 1, you'd go, well, Real Madrid are still favourites. 2, you'd go, probably 60-40 Real Madrid. 3, you think, surely Arsenal can't blow it and lose 4-0. So that's why I think they have to score. And if they score, they obviously need 5. So they've got to be positive. I think Arsenal go through, but I don't say that with any certainty. But my heart says Arteta will set his team up in the correct way to be mentally strong. Physically, Declan Rice is having a great end to the season. Bukayo Saka's now sort of like fresh again. He's fit, but more so he's really fresh. So it's the tactics again. As we talk about Ancelotti's tactics at the Emirates, it's fascinating to think or see what Mikel Arteta thinks in terms of his tactics early on in the game. I hope, and I think, I don't hope because I've got no dog in the fight, and whenever we close our eyes and Real Madrid are on 15 Champions League titles, blink your eye, they'll be on 20. So, but I think Arsenal just go through. I think it'll be a scare. I think it'll be a great game. I think Real Madrid will get close, but I think Arsenal might just have enough.
Oh, my days. I'm just looking at my watch, and can we not fast forward time to get to this? Not yet, because I still have to go and make my dinner so I can sit down and watch this exciting game. But I know there's all the talk about Real Madrid, Arsenal. There's still another juicy game that's going on with 2 teams that are fighting to get to the semifinals as well. And there was a bit of a surprise in that first leg in terms of Inter getting the better of Bayern. And now Inter have it back on their home turf. Any chance of Bayern, who again were other people's favorites as well, to win this entire competition? Any chance of Bayern pulling this back?
I didn't fancy Bayern at home against Inter. I said Inter would go to the Allianz and beat them. I think they're a better side. I think when you watch Inter Milan play, they're so willing to sacrifice themselves for the greater good. Inzaghi's a tactical genius. I don't think he gets the plaudits that he should get. I think he's a world-class manager. The problem for Bayern, as you know, Alexis, they've got a million injuries at the back. So you look at it, Inter side at San Siro, who play 3 at the back. They'll play 4 across the middle. They'll have front men that can score goals. They are a team that's always willing to sacrifice themselves. And 5 in midfield and 2 up front. But they're a side that are willing to sacrifice themselves. They're willing to sort of dig in and not worry about territory and protect what they've got. They're not just an old-fashioned Italian side. They're willing to go forward when the time is right and score goals. I think they'll do the same. I think Bayern are probably 2 or 3 players, if not more, away from challenging Inter. I mean, they could go through because they're a good side. They've got Harry Kane and wide players that are still very, very good. I just see Inter scoring, and I think Inter are one of the sides. And I commentated on the game against Arsenal when they got the job done against them in San Siro. They're a team that's willing to sacrifice anything they've got for the result, and I think they'll do the same tonight.
Well, as you said, you don't think that Inzaghi and probably even Inter themselves get enough credit, especially this year in the Champions League, that may be playing into their favor. Do you feel like they are the dark horses of this tournament, even though Barcelona is waiting on the other side? But could they make it to the final? Would it not be a surprise for you?
It wouldn't be a surprise. No, I commentate on Serie A and I watch how good Inzaghi is as a coach. And I take you back to the Arsenal game where Federico Di Marco arguably is one of the best left wing backs in world football. Bastoni is a centre back who's arguably one of the best left-sided centre backs in a 3 in Italian football. He sacrificed a pair of them, and he played Darmian, who's a right-sided player, on the left-hand side to stop Bukayo Saka and Ødegaard, and he played a young boy called Jan Bissek, who's physically very, very strong instead of Bastoni. So arguably, when was the last time you'd see a manager take arguably their best 2 players out of a team to sacrifice them for the result and stopping the opposition? And they stopped Arsenal. They've done a great job on them. So Inzaghi's a tactical genius, you know. He's like a chess grandmaster, and that's what they are. They're probably a team of pawns that play like kings at times because they're willing to sacrifice. And they're a brilliant side going forward. They've got 5 guys in midfield, but especially the midfield 3 who are technically very good. Barella's the legs in there. They've got Fratesi, who scored in the first leg, to come off the bench at any given time. He'll play a part, I think, more so next season. But they're a side that are willing to just really, really dig out a result. So Bayern have got it all on.
Matteo Darmian, another one who was one of our own and is doing even better.
Do you need a leather couch, Alexis? Do you need a leather couch to lie down and just get the troubles off?
I need therapy after supporting Manchester United. Who'd have thought? United, who aren't even in the Champions League, but here we are talking about it, nor will we be next season. But anyways, that's good because that means tonight I can watch the game for all the glory and splendor that I'm sure we will see. Exciting matchups all to play for. Thank you as always, Don Hutchison. We'll be back with more after the Champions League on ESPN FC Live, so tune in.